Welcome to Something to Say, where we bring voices from diverse backgrounds who will share their unique stories and perspectives on finding their passion and provide insights on how you can find yours. Join us as host Greg DeShields guides us through this enlightening journey.
Welcome to Something to Say podcast, a unique platform that amplifies the voices of individuals from various backgrounds sharing their passion. I'm your host, Greg DeShields, and I'm pleased to bring you another episode. Thank you for joining us, and today I am pleased to welcome Stuart Weiner. Stuart has had an extensive career in healthcare compliance. His professional journey has led him to serve as a compliance officer at various esteemed institutions, including hospitals, medical schools, several large private practices, and an independent practice association. With his deep expertise and unwavering commitment, Stuart has consistently ensured that these institutions adhere to the highest standards of regulatory compliance and ethical practice. His role has been pivotal in safeguarding the integrity of healthcare operations and maintaining the trust of patients and stakeholders alike. In 2019, Stuart transitioned into a new career of his professional life by dedicating his time and skills to the Professional Service Group of Central New Jersey, fondly known as PSCG. It's a nonprofit organization that provides job search assistance to individuals seeking new employment opportunities. Through his volunteer work with PSGC, Stuart has embraced a variety of new roles and responsibility, including positions in training and marketing within the organization. His involvement with PSGC has not only allowed him to give back to the community, but also to expand his own knowledge and skill set and adapt to new challenges. Stuart's dedication to helping others find their footing in the job search market exemplifies his commitment to service and professional growth. So, Stuart, welcome to Something to Say podcast. We are really excited that you've decided to join us. And I have to be honest with you, I am so anxious to begin our conversation and really take a deep dive into something I guess has been pretty much on a lot of people's mind today. And the kind of job search assistance that you're involved in, I think is pretty exciting. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Greg. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So I know that you're a really busy person doing training and marketing within the PSGC&J, but as we begin all of our podcasts, we like to allow individuals to know a little bit more about you. So before we get into some of the more meatier questions, we'll start with just some get to know you questions. So we'll start with about 3 of them, and then we'll move through. So are you ready for that?
Sure, let's move on.
All right, so our first icebreaker is, what is your favorite childhood memory?
When I was a child, when I was a young boy, especially between like maybe 5 and 10, 11, 12 years old, in that time range, one of the things that my family never did was go on vacation. My parents would occasionally go off for a weekend or something, but my sister and I and my mother and father never went on vacation anywhere as a family. My father was always working all the time. He's busy, and he just couldn't do it. So my mother had a sister who lived in Brooklyn, New York. And when we were kids, we would always go every summer for a couple of weeks to stay with my aunt and one of my cousins. They lived actually right on Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. And we used to go literally every day, as long as it wasn't raining. We'd go to Coney Island and we'd spend the day at the beach and swimming and, whatever kids do at the beach when they're there. And then at night we'd go back and we would watch the fireworks, and we'd go on the rides. We'd go to Steeplechase Park and some of the other attractions, the roller coaster and that sort of thing. And really, if I look back on it, is really one of my favorite childhood memories, because it was something very special that we would do as kids. And of all the things that I managed to do, playing Little League, all the usual things that kids do, that one always sticks in my mind, and I can always have a nice smile on my face when I think of what we did.
Well, we ask that question to all of our guests, and it's amazing how these childhood memories really resonate throughout your life
Yep.
and leave a very warm spot in your heart with a particular period in a time where you were very young and innocent and had a chance to kind of absorb it and turn it into the memory that it is for you.
Right.
So let's move a little bit deeper. What was your biggest failure and what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I try to forget most of my failures, to be quite honest. But I guess, and it's not an actual full-fledged failure, but it's something that it's still I'm still working with it. But I would guess that in 2019, not too long after I left my last full-time job, I decided that I had lots of experience as a compliance officer and knew a lot about healthcare compliance. And I figured there's a need out there. I'm going to start a consulting, and I'm going to focus my consulting on smaller medical practices, dental practices, whatever kind of medical functions are out there, because many of them don't have any compliance program at all. And as most of us know, the smaller practices can't really afford to have a compliance officer or a full-time compliance person on their staff. So they generally would take sort of the compliance functions, like all of the HIPAA privacy stuff and things like that, and just give it to one of the employees in the office. All of a sudden the office manager or one of the doctors becomes the compliance officer. And for the most part, they ignore most of it because they're too busy to really pay much attention. So I started a business where I would reach out to practices and offer my services. I put together some brochures. I did all kinds of research and stuff like that. And I would say it's a failure, at least up to this point, because I'm terrible at, even though I'm involved in marketing and PSG, I'm really terrible at marketing. And I'm not very good at figuring out how to reach people and really convince them that they number one need someone to help them, and that I could provide that service to them. And I'm not really competing against all the big compliance consulting firms that are out there because they don't really reach out to small practices. There's not enough money in it. But for me as an individual, I felt that this is something I could do. I wouldn't say it's a total failure, but I'd say that it's not been as successful as I would like it to be. And I'm still working on it. I'm still putting in time and effort. I'm still reaching out to practices. Occasionally, I'll get a nice hit and I'll be able to go in and do some work for them and maybe do some training. For example, the HIPAA rules, the privacy rules require every covered entity, like a doctor's practice, to provide HIPAA training for their staff at least once a year. Most of these staffs never receive any training at all, or they may get a canned thing to go on to YouTube, watch a video. So I felt that that would be something that would really be important and would resonate with these practices. And to some extent, some of that has worked for me, but there's a long way for me to go in order to really try to make this a success. And I've never had enough real cash on hand, if you will, to go out and hire a marketing firm that could really do the kind of job that I was. So I've been trying to do it on my own. That's been, I think, a failure in progress. You would say, it's a work in progress, but up to this point, it hasn't been the success that I hoped it would be.
Well, often we get responses that indicate that it is a failure in as much as perhaps the original concept of what I was doing didn't materialize the way that I had hoped. But it often serves as an incentive to move further, or at least to take additional steps or some unique steps to kind of see your way through, if not that existing circumstance, something that might develop in the future.
Right. No, exactly. And I'm still reaching out to see if I can find the right combination of experience and interest in what I'm trying to do to see if I can build this a little bit more. I'm not totally focused on it, but it is something that I'd like to see succeed.
Right. Cool. All right. So, kind of shifting gears,
Mhm.
another question that we often get some very interesting responses to. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be and why?
Yeah, I gave some thought to that question, and I don't know if my choice makes a lot of sense, but to me it does. That would be Ben Franklin. He is, to me, one of the most extraordinary people that I've ever read about, and I've read his biography. I've seen movies with characters portraying him and stuff like that, and just knowing some history. He just he was a problem solver. He was an entrepreneur. He was one of the founding fathers. He's just an ambassador, if you will. He was over in Europe during the Revolutionary War, just as an early member of the of all of the things that went on to led up to and it continued on through the revolution. He just has always been someone that I've admired, and it would really be very interesting to talk to him. And that's kind of my choice anyway.
Well, you're not alone in that. Actually, you're the third person to cite him. June Samarino, who is with Intercontinental Hotels, was the first.
Hmm.
She's a wine aficionado, and she talked a lot about his connection to French wines
Right,
and
right, right.
shared a lot of insight. So at some point in time, we'll have to get all of our Ben Franklin people together so they can talk about it.
Yeah, no, he was just an absolutely fascinating person and lived a very long life. I mean, many of them did. You think of the lifespan of most average people several hundred, 250 years ago was probably in their early 40s.
40s, yeah.
And here he was into his 70s, whatever, and plus he was not only an extraordinary person, he he loved the ladies even when he was a very old man, which I admire because being not quite so young myself anymore, I really admire someone who could really still show a lot of interest.
Out of interest. Wow.
Yeah.
So let's learn a little bit more about you. So, what was your personal journey? Tell us about how you have gotten to where you are.
Okay. Well, I graduated from Rutgers with a degree in history, way back in the days when, if you had a liberal arts education and a degree, you could still find a pretty good job. You would just simply go to the New York Times and look at all the listings for all the jobs that they used to have there. And obviously, no one does anything like that anymore. And the Sunday Times would probably have 15 pages of job listings. And one of the first list of job listings was recent college graduates, and they didn't really care what your background was. It just was if you graduated from college, you could find a job. My first job was with Prudential Insurance Company in Newark, New Jersey, and Prudential is an interesting place. It's like big rooms filled with people, everyone at a desk. As far as the eye can see, you would have like 500 people, it seemed like, working in a room. And I was given a job, strangely enough, as an accounting supervisor. I supervised 15 people, my very first job. I know nothing about accounting. I have no background in it, but the word accounting probably didn't mean CPA type accounting. It really just meant, because with an insurance company, there was lots of paperwork to push and lots of things to do. So there were 12, 15 clerks. That was my job. I worked there for a few years, but then I decided I wanted to be a school teacher. So I became a school teacher, and I was a teacher for 3 years. I never had a certificate. Back then, you didn't necessarily have to have a certificate right away, but you had to work toward it. And I was working toward it. But then I decided that being a school teacher, The problem was it wasn't making enough money to support myself and my wife and my first child. So I moved on to several other positions. I took a job as an internal auditor, and again, not having an accounting background, but an internal auditor doesn't have to be an accountant. So I worked as an internal auditor for a number of years for the Macy's Corporation. Uh, and then I moved on from Macy's to working at a hospital in New York City. I'm sure you've heard of Mount Sinai Medical Center. I worked there for quite a few years, and I started there as an internal auditor, and I worked in that department and audited all the functions that a big company would have. And then I became an investigator, and I investigated things that would happen, like thefts that took place and all sorts of other things like that. And then we started a compliance department. Back in the 90s, there were a number of laws passed, one of them, which is the HIPAA law that most of us are familiar with. And there were a number of laws passed, and it's most large organizations like hospitals and healthcare centers needed to have a compliance department to make sure that these huge organizations were in compliance with all of the laws and requirements that cover healthcare. So we started a compliance department. I worked my way up to be the director of that department. And then eventually I became the compliance officer for Mount Sinai. I was there for quite a few years. And then I left there to go to work for PricewaterhouseCoopers as a compliant and as a director in one of their compliance departments. And after that, I worked for a number of different, I would call them large practices, doctors' practices, but large ones where there were 400 or 500 doctors in the practice. Most of that was in Brooklyn, New York. Had nothing to do with my going there as a child or anything, but it just happened to be that's where I worked. And then my last job was as a director of compliance in a local organization that was not too far from home. That was probably the best of my jobs because I didn't have to travel by train for 2 hours each way to get to work. I only had to get in the car and drive 10 minutes. So it was very nice. And that was my last position. I left there in sort of mid 2018. And that was where it went until I became involved with PSGC in 2019.
Wow. The way you tell your story is so interesting. It's almost like I wish I could see it as a movie because you cover such an interesting span of time, looking at the evolution of business, the evolution of work, certainly the evolution of healthcare. Just a very interesting story. So thanks for sharing that. Also, some of our listeners who are recent college grads are like, I was born at the wrong time. I needed to be born when Stuart was born, where I could just go and apply and look in the list. So next question, how big is your inner circle?
Well, I guess you would say my inner circle is probably not very big. In addition to my wife, who's a very close sort of associate of mine in a way, and besides being, the love of my life, and my 5 children. We have 5. They're all grown adults at this point in time. That's a real strong part of my inner circle. We support each other quite a bit. I'd say that there's probably 5 or 6 colleagues from PSGC that I'm pretty close to. I talk to them all the time, not just on those sort of formal occasions like when we have our Monday meetings or anything like that. But I'm on the phone with them a lot, and we talk about other things besides just what we're doing at our organization. And then I have a small handful of friends that that I've known for years, and we talk from time to time with each other. We give each other support, and so that is essentially my inner circle. And and I find that that's just all I really need as far as that part is concerned.
Yeah, people really value that inner circle. It helps to keep them balanced. They're the ones who can support you when you make a great decision and also tell you when you're not making such a great decision. But
Absolutely, absolutely, sure.
so who has had the most influence in your life?
I guess my father has been the person I've most admired in my life. He was a very kind, very hardworking man, always put his family first. Um, he always gave me good advice, always gave me good direction, told me when I was going off in the wrong direction, and in his opinion, he would
Mm,
never say to me, you can't do this, you can't do that, but you shouldn't, or you should really think through what decisions you're making and try and make sure that you follow a path that makes most sense. And he gave me a lot of good life lessons. And I think part of that, what's made him so special to me, is that passed, he gave me the ability to kind of pass that stuff on to my own kids. So they're doing well for themselves. They're successful in their lives, and that's a big point of pride for me that they're doing well. And I like to think that from father to son to children, that's all like a continuum of things.
Continuum. All right, so I know we asked you about the biggest failure, but we also like to find out what was the best year of your life and what was the worst year of your life?
I guess I don't want to say best year. I'd rather say years. I think that the best years of my life was when I got married and the birth of each of my kids.
Mhm.
That was foremost to me. I mean, no matter whether I was successful or not as successful as I'd like to have been in business and work, I think family to me is always the one thing that I've held on to. I think the worst year was when my father passed away. He was not ill for a long time. He lived to be almost 87.
Mm.
And he went from being a very and up until the time he was hospitalized, right before his death, he was still working. He was going to work every day at the age of 86. And that's sort of an inspiration to me.
Mm.
Um, and when he had a stroke, and bingo, within a very short time he was gone, and that was very hard
Mm.
for me. So I would say, around family, it's the best and the worst
Mhm.
is all associated with my family.
Mhm. Well, those two questions are, quite um interesting in terms of the responses that we get because there is a bit of a balance to it, but there's some clarity about how they leave an influence on you and how you
Right.
pursue your life as you go forward.
Hmm.
All right, so let's kind of change gears and talk about job search and career change because
Sure.
the work that you've been doing with the organization. So, here's the first one. As it relates to job search and career change, what are some of the most significant trends or developments you see right now?
I would say this is really nothing new, but I would say the whole AI uh, process that's been going on, Chat GPT and all those other language learning models that are out there, they seem to be influencing everything in every part of everything we do. To put a point on it, yesterday we had a PSG meeting, and our featured speaker was talking again about AI. That always brings out the largest groups of folks when we hold our weekly meetings, no matter who the speaker is. If that speaker's subject is AI in any form, way, or shape or form, that seems to draw more people to our group meeting than almost any other kind of thing. We never have huge meetings, but the first time we did an AI presentation, which was probably about a year and a half ago, the fellow who spoke was a very good speaker, and it drew the largest group we've ever had
Mhm.
to our meetings. And it was the kind of thing that everybody wants to know about, and everybody has kind of an idea of what it does, but it's the impact of it is just so extraordinary. It just has so much influence over everything we do. The other day, I was trying to write as our marketing group does at PSG. I was trying to figure out a letter that we could send out for fundraising. And so I just took a couple of facts about our organization and I asked ChatGPT to write me a letter, right? Now, the letter is not, it wouldn't have come from me. I wouldn't have said all the things it said the way I did, but it formed such a great focus for me. And I shared it with some of the other people on our marketing committee. And everybody said, well, this isn't what I would say, but everybody said, this does really capture what we wanted. And it didn't require me to sit down and spend 2 or 3 hours trying to figure out what I wanted to say. It gave me some good ideas, if nothing else. And it does for people who are looking for that next opportunity. It just gives them so much more range. And I think that's the most significant thing
Right.
that I've seen going forward.
Well, I sat in on that meeting yesterday, and you're absolutely right. My head is spinning. I had a ton of notes, and some of those I actually used yesterday in terms of career change and job search.
Right.
Oh, what would you say are some of the common misconceptions that you'd maybe want to clear up around job search and career change?
I think what many people believe that they can wing it. Okay. That preparation is so important when you're trying to, when you're doing job search. And that preparation isn't just to prepare for a job interview, because that's obviously very important. But preparation is all of the pieces that you put together when you're starting out or when you've re-entered the job market. You've been in the job market. I've gone through that before. You've been in it for a number of years, and suddenly the job disappears. And it's frightening, and you just don't know what you're going to do, and you don't know how to do it. So you immediately rush to the job listings that are out there, whether they're on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever it happens to be. And half the time the jobs really aren't for you. You really don't know that work, but you know a little bit about it. So you figure you'll throw your resume at everything that comes along, and hopefully something will stick to the wall and it'll become what you need. And without really preparing for it, without really studying what you need to do, without understanding really what those people are looking for in a job, to fill a job, and whether or not you really have 80 or 90% of what they're looking for, or you only have maybe 30 or 40%, and you're hoping that they'll kind of ignore the rest. It just becomes a chain of frustration. There's no logic to it. And then there are other people who fill out Gantt charts and fill out Excel spreadsheets with every last little thing they've done. And they spend so much time on that that they're really not, again, focusing on finding the right position and finding for themselves the right network, the right contacts, the right people to help them. And if the combination of not finding the networking that you need to do and just again going for any job that's out there with the hope that something might happen, that leads to tremendous amount of frustration, and people wind up spending months not finding anything that satisfies them. What did I see not too long ago? There was someone who wrote in LinkedIn that he had been out of work for a while and had already applied for, I'm making the number up, it was like 300 jobs, and basically got no responses, no offers of anything. A few interviews, mostly some thank you notes, but we're not what we're looking for. And his story almost bring you to tears when you read it, because it's so frustrating. And you wonder why he's doing it that way, why he's making that kind of, look at all the work involved, look at the effort involved, look at how many times he had to redo his resume to make it fit, all that stuff, essentially for nothing. All right. And there was no indication that he used a network of any kind, that he reached out to anybody that might be able to help him. It was just trying to find a job online and see if he could make a match. And I think that's one of the biggest problems a lot of people have. They just don't know how to go about it the right way. And the right way is obviously networking And the right way is obviously finding some way to get into a business and get in touch with the hiring person, or somebody who's going to help them find the right hiring person. And that, I think that, bottom line, that's it. I know it's a rather lengthy
No, it's very insightful, and I'm sure for those who have been in this career change and job search environment, that information certainly can serve as a real valuable insight as they embark upon how they're going to launch their efforts during the course of even today.
right.
That kind of takes me into some questions about PSGC. So, how does the organization determine the topics that is meant to benefit its members?
Okay. Well, we do have, it's really two ways. We have a very large number of speakers that have come through our organization over the years. And we've always had a very, very effective group that deals with setting up our speakers. Okay. So one of the things that the group does, especially led by a woman by the name of Marianne Usher, USHER, and Marianne has been on this job for a number of years now. She keeps meticulous records on every person who's spoken to us, when they did it, what their topic was, and other information regarding that, so that we know of the maybe 30 or 40 speakers, maybe 50 speakers that we've had multiple times over the years. They've always brought really good information to our audience, if you will. And so one of the things we've always done is to keep very good records on who spoke and can we bring them back. And many of them are very happy to come back to us. We have several people that have spoken generally like twice a year, maybe sometime early in the year and then later in the year. We also offer special programs. We have every year something what we call Recruiters Unwrapped, where, don't ask me where that title came from. And we bring a panel of recruiters, maybe 3 to 5 people, onto the call, and they all give their opinions, where the market's going, what's happening now, who people are looking for, and advice, and they answer questions from the audience about various aspects of what recruiters do and so that we get a better sense of whether or not these are the people we should also be looking at as individuals. We should, and the recruiters themselves offer a lot of advice. They offer their own help. They'll say, listen, if you want to, certainly here's my information, contact me, and I will, I'll talk to you, sit down and talk to you about where you're going and what you're doing. So that's one of the things. Many of our speakers are the kind of people, and by the way, they're all pro bono. They all speak with us and with other organizations for free. They don't charge anything for their services, and we don't pay for them. So we've had a few speakers that want a fee or something, and we simply tell them we can't do that. And some of them will speak for free, and some we'll never hear from because they don't want to do it unless they're being paid. So that's like the strongest way we make sure that we get a wide range of folks that give on many, many topics. We've had a speaker on how to watch out for scams on LinkedIn. We've had speakers on many topics. And as I said before, AI is the one that seems to draw a lot of attention because everybody's interested in what that's about. So that's kind of where our services go. Also, just so you know, PSGC&J was always renowned for its training program. We would offer to people who join the organization, we'd offer to give them training. And the training is in job hunting, job search. So it had training about writing resumes, training about telling car stories, or star stories, whatever you wish to call them, the stories that would go in your interview. So you would give interviews. Situation, task, action, and result. That's sort of those kinds of things that are told. So we would do a lot of training on LinkedIn. we had a 5-module training program, which was very well received. And many people said to us that it was better than the kind of training they would get if they were given some outside help after they were let go by a company, and or those kinds of things. And it was free. Again, it was free to the members. We dropped the training early in the pandemic era because we weren't getting a lot of people coming to our, but we're starting it up again. We're hoping to start our training program up again in the probably in April, May timeframe. So there are a lot of things. We have a couple people on staff who have some expertise in resume writing, so they're happy to help out anyone who reaches out with questions about writing a resume and other functions like that. We used to hold a lot of events, if you will. We would have a springtime picnic event. We still do something kind of special called the holiday homecoming, and we hold a meeting in the evening on a Monday during the Christmas season, and we invite alumni back, and we have someone who asks some of our alumni questions about what they're doing, how the job market is for them. Those alumni are people who left because they found a job, which is the whole purpose of our organization, if you will. And that's well received. People love to come to the meeting because it's different. It's not a speaker. It's all of us talking to each other, that sort of thing. So we do offer quite a bit.
Excellent. So as our time is running short, I definitely wanted to make sure I asked you one of our important questions.
Okay.
Our podcast is entitled Something to Say. So we always like to leave time to find out from those who we are interviewing. So what do you have to say?
I guess I would say that through my long career, I've met literally hundreds and hundreds of different people. And right now, I'm enjoying working with a group of people that I really feel are doing a great job. And the great job is that they're offering guidance and help. I say they, really mean we, because I'm part of it. We're offering guidance and help to as many people as we can. We want to encourage them to work at this, to try to find their next career move and make the right move. And I think that's really gives me a lot of satisfaction, if you will, in this part of my time, to be able to help others and work with others and give them the kind of help that doesn't fix things for them, but it helps them sort of fix things for themselves.
Well, it's really important, and you've been able to share so much insight in terms of how you have curated all this experience and have been able to leverage your career in a variety of different ways, and now ultimately to be able to pay it forward and help a lot of people who could use that insight.
Mhm.
And I have to say that it has really been a pleasure having you on our podcast. And I should say to our audience, this is Stuart's first podcast. I thought you did a really good job with that. So we want to thank you for that. Also, your words are truly very informative, but most importantly, it's been great having you share some of your insights and your passions. So, Stuart, thank you so much for joining us.
Greg, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
So, audience, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Something to Say. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations with voices from various individuals for sharing their background and their passion. So until next time, this has been Greg DeShields.
Thank you for tuning in to Something to Say. We trust you found some valuable insights and takeaways that can help you find your passion. Don't miss out on future episodes. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on your preferred platform. We value your feedback and suggestions, so let us know how we can serve you better. Keep the conversation going and stay inspired until we meet again. Take care and happy listening.